Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Design and Move. My name is Ryan Maxwell. This is Ryan Parr, and we've got Ashley.
Hi everyone, Ashley Labor, physical therapist with Pure Strength Physical Therapy and Performance Training.
And we are movement specialists here with Fluid Health and Fitness. And again, we're bringing you another episode of Design and Move. This one is on the piriformis syndrome. Piriformis is a muscle that is a lateral rotator of our femur, and that means that it opens the leg up. And sometimes it can get too tight and it leads to pain in the hips, in the butt, down the legs, sometimes refers up into the back. And because of which we want to target this muscle and show you how to reduce it and what could be some of the reasons why it becomes overused and how it can feed into global movement imbalances through the entire body. So today we're going to need a couple pieces of equipment. We've got our fascia release ball, the fluid fascia release ball. We have a little lacrosse ball. We've got an exercise band that we're going to wrap around our knees, and then we have a long exercise band. If you like what you're hearing today, make sure to reach out to us at admin@fluidhealthandfitness.com. We do write a blog on this series. It's in the description below, or you can subscribe to our channel. And if you have specific questions on any of this stuff, we would love to have you talk to Ashley. And where can they find you, Ashley?
Sure, you can reach out to me. My email is ashley@pureyoga.us, or go to pureyoga.us and click on the Pure Strength tab.
Remember that this is going to be condensed at the end of the video, so if you don't want to go through the whole course where we give you all the descriptions, you can go right to the end. On that note, let's get right into our release strategy.
All right, let's get going. So first what we're gonna do is release the gastroc muscle. Your gastroc muscle is located in your calf, so the back side of the lower leg. And why this is important is this is often tight and correlated with a tight piriformis muscle, and or because of how you're moving, this is normally a spot that you wanna make sure is loose. So what you're gonna do, take the ball, and you're gonna place it right behind the calf, right behind the leg there, and then you can start off anywhere with the ball. Basically, you wanna kind of go from right about here to just up behind the knee, because that muscle goes all the way up and inserts above and behind the knee itself. So you can start with any spot. You just wanna make sure you check out the entire length of the muscle with the release ball.
So you can hold on to that position for about 30-60 seconds, right, under isolation. Before you start moving, you kind of want the muscle to settle down a little bit.
And then what he's gonna do is bring the foot towards you and in a little bit. So as if you're bringing it up and then in, and then come out of it. So basically you're putting that muscle on stretch while the ball is holding down a spot so that it's getting a release throughout. And you can try different spots of this muscle and see where it might feel the most tender or tight to you. And you wanna stay on those spots and do a few repetitions and then move throughout it until you kind of hit the whole area while you're moving your ankle in that way.
Yeah. And then you'll notice that as you release it, the muscle should sink into that ball a little bit deeper each time, and it'll help you to get deeper and deeper to those muscle fibers. So all said and done, about 2 minutes on both sides. You can do multiple areas and then get into the next stretch, which is going to be the actual piriformis. So let's get to it. Like we said at the beginning of the video, the piriformis is responsible for externally rotating the femur open, but it also assists in bringing the leg back and abducting the leg. So other muscles that are responsible for that as well are the gluteal muscles. Sometimes this guy is a compensator for the glutes so that those don't work as efficiently as they could. So due to which this can lead to altered gait mechanics in the way that you walk or the way that you run or jog. So a good way to look for this or to assess it in your own body is you'll notice that one leg is going to be rotated out, or that it's almost pushed forward on the back leg or the swing leg of your gait cycle. So if I was to step forward into my lead leg, this would have a greater out sweep, and that leg would have a tendency to have more circumduction around, and that's gonna line up that femur head in the socket so that these muscles are shortened and become reflexively tightened. So thing is, it could be tight on either side, whether it is on that opposite side or on the swing side. So today we're just gonna do both, just for good measure, and make sure that we loosen up those hips on both sides of the body. So to do that, Ryan's gonna sit on the ball. Now the piriformis lays underneath the glute, so we wanna stretch that glute out, kind of flatten it out like a pancake. And he's gonna do that by taking the leg and draping it up and bringing the hip into flexion. It's gonna basically stretch the glute out. He rotates it externally into internal to go through the stretch where the muscle would attach over here at the neck or the head of that junction, that elbow. It's called the trochanter. It's the outer ridge of the bone of the neck of the femur. And he's gonna arch his back a little bit, pull his hip under a little bit and stabilize the sacrum of the lower portion of the spine. When he does that, it's gonna pull that muscle into a nice little tight stretch. Right, do you feel that, Ryan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. So if you're on it, you're probably gonna feel it.
Yeah.
It does bark at you. Okay.
Yeah, and if you're having a hard time finding it, basically you want to think about right in the middle of your butt, from the middle, going out to the side. Thank you. Perfect modeling there.
Yep.
And when you are releasing this muscle, just be sure that you don't feel any numbness or tingling into the leg or at that area, because there does run the sciatic nerve through there. And sometimes if you are feeling that, it will mean that you're actually on the nerve rather than the muscle. So numbness, tingling, stop. It should just feel like you're on a muscle. It might be pretty tender, pretty tight for most people. So make sure to breathe into it.
Yep. And again, if the muscle is in a spasm state because it is guarding or bracing, then that can trigger those same symptoms. So this is an easy way sometimes to get rid of that sciatica relationship that people associate with piriformis syndrome, right? So again, we're gonna hold on to it for about 30 to 60 seconds, just like the calf or the gastroc. Let that muscle chill out a little bit, and then as he sinks into it, he can start moving the muscle in its opposite direction, or the stretch of the muscle, which would be to flex the hip, internally rotate it, and abduct it towards the center of the body. So that means it's bringing it into the midline, he's rotating the knee inward, and he's gonna flex it up into his chest. So breathing in as you do that will help to extend through the back. It'll create a nice anchor point for the spine. It'll get a nice deeper stretch. You can breathe out and sink deeper into that muscle bed and see if it'll let go a little bit further each time. Okay. Do this about 30 to 60 seconds and then move through it and get another minute of breathing going. After you're done, hit both sides, and that's going to release the overactive muscles. Now we want to get into the phasics, the weak guys, the ones that are kind of lazy and don't do their job. And that's the activation portion of this video. Let's get right to it. Now we're going to get into an activation that's going to target the hip flexors, the groin, and the tibialis muscle, this big muscle on the top of his shin bone that's responsible for pulling his toe up and helping to turn it in. Now the muscles that we reduced earlier today were the gastrocnemius muscle, especially this lateral gastrocnemius, responsible for plantarflexion, where you push the toe down, and external rotation at the ankle. Now that has an impact on the knee and the hip, which can lead to this piriformis being overused. So what we're going to do is try to tie all these pieces together up the kinetic chain, up the leg, so that these muscles want to fire the way they're supposed to in a normal gait cycle. Okay, so I'm going to use this little tiny band. This has got about 2 or 3 pounds of tension. This is incredibly hard. It really is surprisingly hard, right?
Yeah.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah, we were just talking about how this may seem like an easy exercise, but it's actually pretty challenging. So if you're someone who's having pain, or let's say you're, on the weaker side and you have strength to build, you might even do this without the band to start with, and then add the band. Obviously, he's holding the band right now for our client. If you don't have someone to hold it for you at home, you can tie the band around a piece of furniture, like a couch. The leg to the couch is pretty stable, so that's one way you can do it at home as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So always try to work within your range of motion and what is a pain-free range of motion. Obviously, there's a difference between muscular tension and again strain, and then feeling pain in the joint. So we don't want to feel this in the ankle, knee, or hip in a bad way. So what he's going to start doing is he's going to pull, leading with the toe. He's going to bend the knee, and he's going to start pulling that leg up towards the center of his body so that his knee stays inside his hip line. If there is tension in those lateral rotators, the hip will have a tendency to want to rotate out. So go ahead and show him, Ryan, real quick what it looks like. The leg will open up. Your hip might even drop open or sweep open too. That again is something that you're going to want to control with your abdominals. So make sure that as you're pulling that leg up, I find it to be helpful to breathe out, to contract my abdominals, to help stabilize my pelvis, so that I can draw the knee in towards the center of the body, try to at least get to 90 degrees at the knee, pull the knee in towards the center of the midline of the body, and then slowly come down. As you come down, the tension from the quad might be strong enough that it pulls your back up off the ground. If that's the case, you may want to reduce the range of motion to protect your back. Make sure that you keep your abs nice and tight as the leg comes down, so control it as you come down.
Another thing you can do if you are feeling your back on this one, bend your opposite knee so that you take a little pressure off your low back. Same motion, same movement with the right leg in this case. That's another way to just make sure it's pain-free for you.
Yeah, so you should be swaying through the hips. If you are, probably a good idea to reduce the range or reduce the intensity, meaning maybe even drop the band. And again, we're gonna be targeting the little guys that attach basically the head of the femur to the pelvis, and getting these proximal or close attachment points stronger is going to go a long way to helping stabilize your lumbo-pelvic hip system. So we would want to do about 2 sets of 20. You notice with Ryan, he did a nice slow opening of the muscle back into extension. So you're going to want to try to replicate that on your own. If you have questions, again, reach out to us. You can reach me at admin@fluidhealthandfitness.com, or Ashley, again, where can they get you?
Ashley at pureyoga.us.
There it is. All right, so we're done with the activation. Let's get to our strength. Here we go. Now we come to our integration portion of the video. Integration basically means that you're trying to coordinate multiple joints in the body so that they all kind of function and work together appropriately. A lot of times the muscles, they fire in patterns that aren't appropriate to support our joints the way they're supposed to move, and that can lead to lots of injuries or impairment syndromes up and down the body. So today what we're going to try to do is get our body to function in the right way and overuse certain muscles so that they come alive for us. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk on our heels and pull our toes up. This actually, if you do have sciatica, might really aggravate it. So we want to be careful of that right out of the gates. So if there is pain in the back, or again, like Ashley had mentioned, tingling down the legs, probably a good idea to reach out and talk to her or someone that would be qualified to assess those things. But if you're good with that and there's no pain, well then this is something that you're going to want to try. So what it really is we're going to be pulling our toes up towards our shins. We get to walk on our heels, and we're going to basically walk forward while trying to maintain our legs within our hip line. So once again, if we have a tendency to have our hips opened up because of a shortened piriformis, you're going to see that the hips might want to sway around and start gripping and pulling your pelvis around. So your shoulders would swing back and forth, your hips would kind of move around, and this might be more of a challenge for you if that's the case. So you'll notice from Ryan's perspective, and maybe if you can see his ankles, his toes have a tendency to want to kick out a little bit more on the left side, so you can see which side of his body is fighting this tendency, and you may find the same for yourself. So if that's the case, try to kick that toe back in and keep it towards the center of your body.
All right, he's doing a great job of staying nice and stable. He's keeping his toes lifted, core is engaged, nice and tall and upright. Now, as you can see, we have him going forward and backwards. So if you have balance limitations, do this next to a wall where you can hang on. We don't want anyone falling, especially when you walk backwards. It's harder than it looks, but you will start to feel these muscles working and firing up in a new way, probably.
Yeah, so what you'll probably feel it in is in your hips, especially when you walk backwards. And again, in the front of your shins, there, the tibialis muscles, bringing this all together. So the co-contraction, of these guys with this guy is what's going to help to keep your leg nice and straight and stable as you go through your swing phase of gait and then into your stance phase. And this will help you to maintain the alignment of the lumbo-pelvic hip system to reduce that pressure up the piriformis. You're going to want to try to complete the movement for about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes. What we're really trying to do is target your type 1 muscle fibers that hold the joints in a stable position and normally fatigue within that time frame. If you fatigue prior to that and you start to compensate, feel free to stop, but then do 2 sets of that until you can get up to the time. Okay? On that, let's get to our strength phase. All right, so our final movement has to do with the gait cycle. You'll notice that there's a common element through all of these exercises, and it's all how our basic movement profile involves walking or gait, right? Obviously, functional exercise or functional movement is taking exercises and applying it to everyday life activities, and walking is pretty important for everyday activities, right? So today what we're going to show you how to do is work the gluteal muscle in relationship to the strike pattern or the gait cycle on the stance phase of gait. So Ryan's going to stand back on his left leg, and by doing that, it's going to put this band that he has wrapped just above his kneecap into a state of tension, so he's got some dynamic tension going. He's going to feel the pressure on his hip flexor on the front leg and then on the extensors on his back leg. Now the trick here is that he's going to take his leg through the fore-stance phase of gait, or mid-stance, where his heel is on the ground. His foot's pretty much already flat, and he's going to come through that stride, spreading out the foot, leading to, again, a straight knee, and come through by bringing that swinging leg into flexion to the point where the heel wants to lift off the ground on the opposite side. That's called heel off, and that's one of the last phases of your gait cycle. If the calf is tight, the heel is going to want to come off the ground prematurely before he goes through his full phase of gait. Okay, so what we're going to try to do is a nice active release of that calf muscle by stepping over his stride, flexing his glute, and making sure that that hip doesn't swing outward as he goes forward in his phase of gait. Now there's going to always be a little bit of an outswing there, but an excessive one is what leads to all the bad stuff that happens on overacting that piriformis muscle that we try to turn off, right? So he's going to try to coordinate his ability to get the stretch out of the calf without the heel off prematurely, activating his glute by pulling his leg back into extension, and making sure that his lower back doesn't excessively arch by engaging his abdominals on that side.
Yeah, and you can see that both of his feet are facing forward, so just that's something you can watch. Are my feet facing forward? And then thus are my hips facing straight ahead, like you have two headlamps on your hips. So everything should be kind of going straight in that line. And then you can see he's keeping nice posture with his upper body, core is really engaged, just like we want people to have when they're actually walking. So this one's super functional.
So remember, perfect practice makes perfect, and we're using this exercise band to add a little tension. We want to make sure that if we start breaking down our form, our mechanics start to get sloppy, that we would stop. Again, we want to cement this into our central nervous system and make sure that it's perfect so that when we do take on activities like running, jogging, and walking, that it's going to replicate the same standard and the quality of movement that we want. So you'll want to complete about 20 repetitions on each leg. Give yourself about 45 seconds in between your sets, and you're going to complete 2 of those sets. There's a lot of information that we went over. Remember, at the end of the session here, we have a condensed version of all of this, so you can just skip right to it. And again, if you want a written copy of this, it's listed in our blog in the description down below. You can just go ahead and download that and use that for your reference. If you have questions, again, reach out to us at admin@fluidhealthandfitness.com, or you can reach Ashley again.
Ashley Labor, I'm at ashley@pureyoga.us.
Yeah. And remember, we believe your body is designed to move, so we want you all to stay in motion. So keep after it, and we'll see you next time for another episode of Design to Move.